welcome back to Casual Watch Reviews channel. Today we have a review of a brand I have not reviewed on the channel for a very long time, and that is AVI-8 watches. As I'm sure you're aware, AVI-8 is owned by Dartmouth Brands, who also most famously, I would say, own Spinnaker watches. Now, I've loved every Spinnaker watch that I've reviewed on the channel, but the AVI-8 watches, usually their aesthetic is not something that personally appeals to me. But this new watch they've got is a far more contemporary looking watch than perhaps some of their other watches that they've got, and it's also commemorating a very historical set of airmen, the Tuskegee Airmen. This is a limited edition watch. It's released today, so let's do the thing with the camera and then let me know in the comment section down below what you think. Here we have the AV-4103. This is the Flyboy Tuskegee Airmen Limited Edition. The watches are made in honor of the Tuskegee Airmen and their legacy. This is the second AVI-8 collaboration and supports the Tuskegee Airmen Inc, with 10% of the net sales going towards the important work that they do, supporting youth programs and providing educational assistance to those pursuing flight training and also other educational pursuits as well. When I was at school in the UK as a kid, we learned a lot about World War II, but mainly it was based on the UK's contribution. So I was not aware of the Tuskegee Airmen. The Tuskegee Airmen were a group of African-American pilots and support personnel who served in the United States Army Corps, later renamed the United States Air Force, and this was during World War II. They were named after the airfield in Alabama where they received their military training. The Tuskegee Airmen went on to make a significant contribution to the war effort, and the airmen received praise for their excellent combat record earned while protecting American bombers from enemy fighters and earning them numerous awards and decorations. The Tuskegee Airmen were the first African-American military aviators in the United States Armed Forces during World War II. As a result of their dedication, skill, and bravery, they played a pivotal role in breaking down racial barriers in the military, paving a way for future generations of African-American service members. So this watch is a worthy tribute to those airmen. I am certainly not going to do justice to the incredible history of the airmen in this watch review, so I'll leave some resources in the description down below for you to do some further research. The History Channel did a great documentary on the Tuskegee Airmen that I watched when I was researching this video, so I highly recommend you check that out. This watch is going to be available in 4 colorways, and each of the 4 colorways is going to be available in 310 numbered pieces. Each colorway is detailed to reflect one of the 4 original squadrons, the 99th, 100th, 301st and 302nd, that together comprise the 332nd Fighter Group. The watch is available for $290 or 310 British pounds. Let's take a second just to talk about the box, because I think they've done an amazing job of this box. It has a lot of artwork on the box itself, so we can see the Tuskegee Airmen on the front here, and as it folds out, we can see 2 portraits on this side. As we open the other side, we can see another 2 portraits. AVI-8 had this artwork and these portraits specially commissioned by an Atlanta-based artist called Derek Whitfield. These portraits are to celebrate members of the Tuskegee Airmen. They're artistic representations of some of the Tuskegee Airmen that this watch is inspired by. I love this yellow inner foam, really complements the brown of the strap, and then as we open this out, we can see that additional NATO strap which has the AVI-8 logo, and we also have a strap removal tool. Overall, huge fan of this box. As you can see, this is a bit more of an understated AVI-8 watch in comparison to some of their other models. It's a very modest 40mm with a 20mm lug width, 47.7 from lug to lug. Very wearable size. The watch comes on this really nice leather strap. Because it's got a 20mm lug width, you could easily put it on a whole host of straps. This would look great on the NATO, and I believe they're including the NATO in the full production models. AVI-8 watches are mainly inspired by aviation, and this watch is a 3-hander, and the bezel is a 12-hour bezel, so you could record another time zone. The outer rehull has a second counter. Love the way that they've used that yellow to highlight Tuskegee Airmen. I think the contrast between the white and yellow on the rehull really draws your eye to the watch. The dial we have on here is a layered dial. We have applied indices, but they look to be applied to an outer ring, the second track on the outer of the dial, and then that entire ring then is placed on the dial. The dial has a sandy finish to it as well, which looks really cool. It has a very vintage aesthetic to it without being a totally vintage piece. We've got the faux tina or the faux aged loom on here. The loom shot on here is absolutely spectacular. And then we have the Tuskegee logo just above the 6 o'clock, and we also see that featured on the crown as well. The crown isn't screw down. Disappointingly, this watch only has a 50-meter water resistance, but it also comes on a leather strap as well, so I imagine that for the most part you won't be swimming with this. 50 meters will cover you for washing your hands and taking a shower and stuff like that. You could probably swim in it as well. The case, being only 12.5 millimeters, is very wearable. Nice polishing down to the lugs and a brushing all the way up the side of the case. We also have a signed AVI-8 buckle. Now for the interesting part about this watch. As you can see here, it's sweeping as if it is a mechanical watch, but it isn't a mechanical watch. It's a Meca-Quartz three-hander. We've seen the Meca-Quartz watches mainly in chronograph versions on the channel, and I've only ever seen another three-handed Meca-Quartz watch that Walbrook make. What we're looking at here is the sweep of the second hand as if it is a mechanical, when in fact it is a hybrid quartz movement known as Meca-Quartz. Now, there's a couple of advantages to this. It does sweep, so it's more pleasing to the eye, but the disadvantage is that the batteries don't last quite as long as other quartz movements, and unfortunately, because they've used this three-hand Meca-Quartz from TMI, which is a Seiko company, it means it doesn't have the date either. And I feel like for a watch like this, an aviation piece, it really should have the date. I'm also a big fan of the date on watches anyway, so I'm biased towards that. On the back here, we can see the engraving of what looks like a winged panther, and I believe that is in reference to the 99th Squadron that the Tuskegee Airmen were part of, one of the squadrons that they were part of. So overall, I think they've done a really good job of this. I like the way that they've tied in all the colours. Traditionally, I'm not a huge fan of the faux tina, I have to be honest, but the way that they've tied this in with the yellow complements the yellow on the reholt. It also complements these hands that they've done that look very much like a pilot watch, perhaps something from an IWC, for example. And that yellow tip on the second hand really ties the whole design together. So I'm not totally put off by the faux tina on here. I think it really works on the reholt or chapter ring there, and the yellow and white. They've also tied it in with that muted red. Really complements the blue of the dial as well. And then they've got the Tuskegee logo there at the 6 o'clock position. That it's a more subtle design than perhaps their other traditional models. Very wearable. If you're also not a fan of their other watches, then I think this one would suit you perfectly. More importantly, it doesn't matter what I think, it matters what you guys think, so let me know in the comments section down below. Always very much appreciate you watching, interested to know your thoughts. If you're not subscribed, I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time on Casual Watch Reviews.